Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Timeless Health, where the objective of this podcast is to interview amazing speakers, pioneers in the field of medicine or wellness, and even patients like we have today. This Timani's here with us, and we are going to explore a little bit of how her case came to be and how in precision medicine we can help make disease elective and a thing of the past. So before I delve any further, I just wanted to introduce Timony to everyone. She is a patient extraordinaire who initially had come with these non-specific symptoms that had been bugging her for quite some time, years, ever since around the pandemic time frame, which we see a lot. And a lot of things happened during that time, things like exposure to COVID, immunizations, things that tank the T cells. And we see that a lot with patients, that these insults kind of come one after another, and the immune system takes years to build and develop. And sometimes it can take one large insult that affects us, let alone multiple ones over a period of time that can eventually lead to complete dysregulation of the immune system, infections, autoimmune problems. And I think that's where I leave it best to the patient to describe what happened and what you came to see us for.
Sure. Yeah. It's funny being here talking about my health because I always prided myself on being an extremely healthy person. You know, other people would have autoimmune issues or whatever, just random sickness. And I was like, that's not me. I'm a very healthy person, So definitely got a kick in the pants. Now looking back and having kept a health journal, I see how long the symptoms had been going on. But at the time, it creeps up on you. I went from running half marathons and just being a very active, energetic person, and just kind of slowly went down, down, down. I had a inflection point where I had been battling these flu-like symptoms, fatigue. I knew I wasn't feeling well, but in the classic kind of American way, you just like keep on trucking and assume you're going to get over it. And I was so sick. I was coming back from a trip with friends where it was just napping constantly and felt awful. I got on the plane and I realized I was so weak. I could not put my carry-on, which was not that heavy, into the overhead bin. That's how weak I was. And I was just like, what is going on? I feel like I'm just breaking down. I ended up, thought maybe it was botulism because I had recently gotten Botox. I ended up in the Stanford ER. Thank God it was not that. And, but that sort of began the journey of trying to figure out what the heck was going on with me. So, went to several neurologists, learned it was not myasthenia gravis, which I had symptoms of, ptosis, trouble swallowing. I nearly choked to death a couple times.
That's a severe autoimmune condition for those who don't know, myasthenia gravis. And interestingly enough, the hot, trendy procedure called plasmapheresis or apheresis helps pull out these large proteins that can treat such conditions, right? But they didn't think it was that.
Right. I tested negative. I was on, is it pyridostigmine? I never know how to say it.
Pyridostigmine. Mm-hmm.
Pyridostigmine, thank you. For a while, and that actually did help. But it can help in general because with MG or with all of these, basically your neurotransmitters are degraded, right? So they can't, you're better at explaining this than I am, but basically it helps your muscles and nerves talk to each other more easily. So that helped a bit while I was waiting for blood test results and just working on other treatment plans. I started a few different sort of Band-Aid symptom fixes here and there. I actually paid out of pocket like $5,000 for the massive blood panel myself. And that's when I learned that at the very least, I had Epstein-Barr, which is just mono. And I don't know how I got it. I don't know why. It wasn't, I always think of it as like a disease you get in college, But I was looking around for doctors who could actually help. And frankly, that's been quite difficult because, well, this is something you might be able to speak to, but it seems to me now the number one thing you need from a doctor is just a curiosity with what's going on with you. Most of the time you go in and see doctors and they're sort of like, it's not that, so goodbye, right?
You're like, you don't fit the label.
It's not that, but like, what is it?
The checkbox.
Right.
Which
exactly.
corresponds to a treatment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, that's a sort of open question I have for you. With all we know about how many unknowns there are about the human body, why is it when I go to a doctor, they seem so certain that this or that is the only way, and if you don't fit this predetermined profile, then it must not be that. Like, it seems counterintuitive to me when you see, hundreds or thousands of patients over your career, that you would still think that people have to fit a certain checklist, or they can't have these issues. What do you think that is? Is it something about how they're trained, or do you think they just collect so much data they think the rest is noise?
No, because I think if you said it right, this isn't just one physician.
Mhm.
It's the whole ensemble,
Yeah.
right? All of them having the same notion. So that's a product, I believe, of training. Since I was through the system as a primary care physician with a focus in sports medicine, it's like, this is what you're treating and that's it.
Mhm.
So in a sense, the curiosity was killed. And I think personally, it was from the corporatization of medicine.
Okay.
The best lawyers in the country where I've consulted with actually say that openly. The corporatization of medicine, they've been around a lot longer than me. They've seen it go from physicians who had good relationships with specialists who were special at the time, not overwhelmed with seeing people just pass through like a mill the way it is today, because you're spending a fraction of the time with the people. When you don't have that time,
Right.
I think this is where the
You feel
erosion
like you
begins.
just have to get through everyone as quickly as possible.
And it's like, I don't know. That's the only thing I can do to explain why. Obviously, without time, you can't have curiosity. You can't probe and ask questions and challenge your learning.
Thread together connections, thematic elements that might be something else.
Top physicians in every specialty around every university know how I practice, not per se just me, but my colleagues. And they're very well aware of the results that we produce. They are curious at home. And then in the ER, they just don't know. And then the arrogant ones,
Go. Yeah.
arrogance is the anesthesia, you say, that keeps the ignorant feeling important or listened to. So remember, they have a job to do. They are the authority. And that is a bit of a problem, that authoritativeness attached to, because they know what they know, right? They don't know what they don't know.
Right. But that is the part where you could truly make a difference or have some sort of breakthrough.
Just through a referral even, and learn yourself.
Yeah.
If it doesn't fit in the check boxes with their time frame, who are they going to refer to?
Yeah.
Especially when it comes from the higher ups of hospitals,
Right.
not to refer to us.
Yeah, fair enough.
Even in Cleveland Clinic, the real best hospital in the country, I believe, who've done a lot of work in the past 5 years, I've been very impressed with, have a functional medicine or precision medicine department, research and clinical. And within that hospital system, which we have good relationship with, they don't refer to them.
Interesting.
But people come from all over to see them. That is a problem with this systematic corruption or corporatization, I think, of medicine.
Right.
Because if people are cured, what happens?
Right.
And that's that is behind, not, oh, they're evil. Look, the pharmaceutical company finances the textbooks. It's going to be in my book, right? They finance a lot of medical education. And I think when you get beyond the program, the chairs of departments and the presidents, these are not doctors, right?
It's
interesting
too, because things like FDA approvals are extraordinarily expensive. Right. Like, I actually learned quite a lot about the FDA approval process through this. Just, I'm a big Redditor. So I'm reading like the peptides subreddit, and there's like the doctor subreddit where they all complain about their patients, which is actually really interesting to see the other side.
Because they're losing trust as a result of this corporatization. They have to be able to, like me, I want to help people.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind. With curiosity, step out of the system. And I think there are a lot of, they don't have enough courage or to do that.
I'm sure too, there's also a sense of this person, I only have so many time slots in a day. I've got a half an hour with each patient or an hour or whatever. And also I need to focus on the ones who very clearly need help in a way where I can be effective, right? This one is iffy. I don't know. Let's just move on, right? Like, let's focus on the ones that are wearing.
Yeah, as an urgent care doc for a while too, I got in trouble for this. I'm so proud of it. I wear it like a badge, because I would actually spend time with the most ignorant who demanded antibiotics. And I showed them the literature, what you don't need. Here's what you can do. And I challenged them. I dare you to come back in 10 days.
Yeah.
The ones that did take the antibiotics came back regretting it. They learned something. And the ones that did not come back often.
But you had that curiosity, or interest, I
when it
should
was
say.
not
You were
needed.
interested in the patients, right? And I
Yeah,
think that's,
but you're not seeing 50 people a day, and you
yeah,
better hurry up. And that's when I
that's
knew I had
true.
to get out.
So, well, the reason I ended up seeing you, I didn't know this at the time. I just got my test results back, and it's like, wow, all 4 EBV
The
measures were
Epstein
on the
Barr.
charts. Yeah, so I looked for any doctors in Miami who would treat that, and actually, you were one of very few. There were I just couldn't find them. What I found out from another doctor too is that it's generally not taken seriously or seen as something that's a big deal, which is fine. Maybe it isn't. But that's how I ended up finding you. And I was also very attracted to the fact that you do whole body wellness, right? Going through the gut protocol, really starting with the basics of how is the system of your body working. I think it's a really interesting time for medicine where we have all these Western practices that are really starting to wake up and understand not necessarily the minutia of Eastern medicine, but the sense of your body truly is an entire system. I think in Western medicine and philosophy, we have a very strong tendency to think of the brain and the body as two different things, right? Oh, it's all in your head. Even if it is all in my head, that's all the only thing I got. It's going to affect the rest of me, you know?
The gut-brain connection is the greatest example,
Yeah,
and I can't
exactly.
hide too long
Right. And I think
from that.
50 years ago, people would have just sort of bitten that off entirely, right?
Mhm.
I mean, there have been amazing advances in medicine. I feel like even over the past 20 years, advances in, CRISPR, just being able to share more information online, et cetera. But yeah, really being able to think about,
Clinical genomics,
yes,
what we do,
absolutely.
stem cell therapy
Right. Right.
and plasma exchange, all the things that were, on the more advanced treatment side of things, marry very well with the systems biology approach or Eastern philosophy.
Right. Exactly. Right. We're thinking about, okay, you have something going on here. How does it relate to everything else in your body and how your body actually Um, goes through the, I'm gonna say, metabolic process, I guess in general, right? So yeah, so that's how I met you. You're traveling. I had to wait for a while, and then we started on the gut protocol.
Mhm.
That was the first step. I started feeling a bit better. Elimination diet that helped a bit. Gut detox helped. Um,
And the spike detox as well.
Spec detox. Thank you. I I should mention my symptoms were m- just general fatigue, body aches, just that feeling when you're about to get a really bad flu, your body's just like go lay down. That was me for like a year and a half. It was
Yeah,
just
so
that.
you think of that, it sounds like chronic fatigue almost, right?
Yeah,
And what's so interesting, what is chronic fatigue? It's often associated with, in the conventional literature, with chronic viruses like EBV.
interesting. I didn't know
So
that.
yeah, and
Okay.
it's not so much denied, I just don't know what to do. Antivirals, et cetera, et cetera. And while there are treatments, and we gave you one,
Mhm.
to me it said much more.
Right.
It said that
Right.
your immune system wasn't working after this insult of around COVID time. And so we treated with spike detox to kind of get that out of you with things like nattokinase that help erode spike protein, it's shown in early literature, improve microcirculation because we know about microclots, right? Everyone's heard about that by now, in addition to the myocarditis and stuff. And we just started getting you well from a microbiome immune standpoint.
Mhm, mhm. And that was, definitely seeing steady improvement at that point. And then we started on the thymosin,
Hmm.
alpha 1 and beta. And I feel like around that time, so October going up through Thanksgiving is really when I was able to wake up and not feel that sense of like go lay down immediately. And by the way, it's a little uncomfortable talking about this. I have to admit, I've been talking about my health more than I ever have in my life, just due to having to deal with it. But also, I didn't have cancer. I wasn't like bleeding out of a limb or something. It was affecting my quality of life. It made it impossible for me to live a normal daily life. Right before I went on medical leave, I was on a work trip. I tell you what, I went to the office every day at 9. I would get home from the office every day around 7, and I just laid in my hotel bed until the next morning. That's it. That's all I did. I didn't go down to the restaurant to eat. I didn't do anything. It was just all I could do was just that one thing that day, which was hard enough, and then that was it.
Yeah.
I didn't see friends, I didn't go travel, there just an extraordinary number of things that I couldn't do. And I grew up very much, as I was telling you before, in a culture where medicine was viewed as suspect. You just have to get through everything. And so I tried to do that for so long. And then it became so clear that I just needed actual medical intervention.
How
And
many
so that was
doctors did you see?
probably 8 for various things. Yeah, usually dead ends. Wait times were significant as well. So I could start one thing. I had one neurologist I saw him once, and he left me a voicemail 6 months later, and that was it. That was the whole interaction. It was terrible. Yeah. So I definitely feel for people, especially, I would say my case was not that bad at the end of the day. I've read now stories of people who have never could have gotten out of bed, right? Like they can't do anything. So far as it goes, I feel very lucky, and also very lucky that I met you and that everything worked. But still, I think there's both a cultural aspect of just, shut up and wake up and do the work. And then also what we talked about earlier with the medical community itself being inclined to dismiss people who are already feeling bad that they are seeking medical attention.
I think it's also a little bit of a challenge to their credentials. I never saw it like that because I always loved integrative health. I was fortunate to have a combined residency program with it at an intro level, and then I fellowship trained after. But yeah, I mean, it's like, what do you mean I don't know anything? And yeah, and that's kind of another aspect I should mention too. So it's like a lot do know, as I mentioned, they do know, and they try to climb out of there, even asking how I did it and what they should do. ER doctors to critical care
Because you're
doctors
seeing
asking for help
results. Yeah.
because we're seeing results. We're not like it's gotten so bad with these short visits that with all the medicines thrown on top, think of it as sweeping dust under the rug. How much can you do
Yeah.
until the side effects from that dust under the rug start causing a problem? So now they're getting bounce backs. They're overwhelmed.
Right.
Hearing about success stories, they want out.
Right.
And that's where we're at a tipping point.
It's interesting too because I've discussed with friends that have had either similar medical conditions or even worse than I had, and the amount of hinting or outright saying that it's all in your head. It's just,
Well, I'll tell you, I tell
what?
doctors this. It's like, yeah, of course it's going to affect you mentally. But which one is it? Is it that you're saying it's coming from the mind?
Right.
Well, we know that that can affect the gut. So maybe you're right, but we have to evaluate for that rather than the other way around.
Yeah. I
They
only
can't answer that,
I
right?
only had one that straight up said it. It was the guy I was doing my EMG. Fortunately, not the one who I was actually working with. And as I was doing the test, I was asking him, just like basic questions about how it works and all of that. And he said something like, "Well, with women, it's usually just psychological." And I was like, "Damn, dude, it's 2025."
I'm glad you took it that way because
Right.
it's kind of antiquated. Even I would respond that way. It's a little bit, you kind of feel bad though, right? You feel bad for them because they probably, no one's going to tolerate that.
Yeah,
Didn't like that.
for sure.
Let alone, saying that. I hope he was very, very old,
He
but
was very
okay.
old, unfortunately.
you know.
But my God, I feel bad for all of his patients. But I also just,
Patients have a responsibility too. That's what we're doing here is to take control of your health and make disease elective. It starts with you. Don't tolerate that. Look for answers you will find.
but if you want to make money, or, like commercialization of medicine, if you want to have repeat patients, why would you dismiss so many as just having a mental
Let me
illness?
let me dismiss that real
Yeah.
quick. You're thinking too smart.
Okay.
The corporatization of money ain't the doctors. It's who own them.
Yes.
What happened over the past 25 years or so? Hospitals buying clinics. And I saw it like, what is going on? They consolidated and corporatized it. Their salaries go up every year. Doctors don't. They got
So,
screwed and controlled. Where are they going to go?
so tell me a little bit more about this. I know a lot of hospitals are privatized. A lot of them don't have to report results or really push back on
Yeah, and they can make all
things
these
like
claims, best hospital in
data.
the.
Yeah, exactly.
But still, like, I guess if they build, and with all the money, they build a nice facility in a nice location, you go, okay, I guess I'll work there.
Yeah.
Students, doctors need to start learning this early and saying, I'm going to do my training, whatever it is, and then learn this systems-based approach to whole body health and wellness, like precision medicine, and go and do it. Maybe by yourself initially, work with someone else who's already doing it, because it starts with them to change.
I have another question for you. When I was investigating after the ER, I'm just Googling everything I can find. And one thing I knew to be true is that if you get this is an example, if you get botulism for Botox, it's enter the bloodstream, it's, and that's it. There's not supposed to be a situation where you get botulism-like symptoms from Botox injection. And yet when I looked into it, I found so many anecdotes. I agree. It's soft data, right? This is not
Have you seen case reports? You can do PubMed case reports. I bet you there are plenty of
FBO
them.
subscription, but
Yeah.
but no, but just like so many stories again and again, people saying very similar things. And if I were a doctor, yes, I know it's not a clinical report, but I would take all of the soft data seriously. If you got 100, 200, 500 people saying similar things online, yes, it could be that. Was it Munchausen's when you're pretending it's like
Fictitious, Munchausen's.
yeah.
These are all like, I guess you could say like
People being
psychosomatic.
dramatic or wanting to
Mhm.
be sick, which I never understood, but whatever. We know it's a real thing. But after a certain point, when you get curious, like, okay, wait a minute, I'm seeing so many people repeat the same story over and over.
You heard of burnout? I think that's a big component too. Is you keep them busy, you keep them occupied. They're not going to want to learn anything. They're just going to try to find a way around or out.
Okay.
And that's what it is. The way is to say, don't give up on your education, which you spent more time in school than any other professional in the world. Okay, don't give up on it. Go and do we're doing, and work with someone. That's it. But yeah, back to you.
Oh, this is all really.
It is.
This is my interview now. So.
Yeah. You said it started to feel better when you did the spike detox. We worked on your gut microbiome so that that crosstalk between the gut and the immune system was calmed, less inflammation, hopefully eradicated some of that. Your circulation may have
The justice
improved.
got better.
And then the peptides really helped with that, you said,
yes,
right?
I would say the first stage helped with the symptoms. The second stage is when I finally felt that lifting of the general illness, right? Like I woke up and I'm like, I can go out today. I can go for a walk today, Through December, I mean, that was Thanksgiving. So through December, I was a little wary about it. Like, is this lasting? Is this just like a temporary reprieve? But it's been consistent till now, February. So
Okay, it's still going. And the peptides we use, thymosin alpha 1, thymosin beta 4, have thymosin alpha 1 is FDA approved in numerous countries. It has more data, I believe, than most drugs on the market.
really,
It just isn't FDA approved here, and the FDA made I call it a false claim actually, to say this is not safe. The data is overwhelming, and in fact, it's anti-cancerous, anti-hepatitis, in anti-infectious disease. This came out when it was starting to treat COVID, when in order to get a vaccination, there could be no other treatments available.
right.
So it showed tremendous promise there. I'm talking like people on death's door in China were getting pumped this stuff and in the ICU, and they were walking out with COVID. So it increases your T regulatory cells, which regulate and control inflammation,
Right.
while giving you back that broken down immune system we talked about. So it's crazy. So we cycled these, and I think you said it helped.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the blood test results came back, autoimmune issues. There's still some neurological stuff that I'm working on as well. But
What percent better overall?
I would say
Would you say?
80%. Yeah.
Great.
For sure.
And we're
So
still
on a
working.
good day, 90.
Great.
And we're still working. Oh, yeah. I want to be like 100, and then we can go to 110.
Great. And you still have to explain some of these neurological persistent symptoms.
Oh, okay. So I self-diagnosed, but I believe I have sensory SPD, sensory processing disorder.
Mhm.
This is something I've had my whole life. So as a kid, certain clothes, I hated them, loud noises. Even now, if I go to a concert, I'm the one wearing earplugs, cutting tags out of clothing, so on and so forth. I
Hypersensory.
hypersensory. Thank you very much. And like if like a fridge is on, God forbid, it's making like a high pitch, like other people won't even hear it. And I'm just like, I'm good. Like, what?
Is there any noise in here?
Well, there's music in the background.
Yes.
Yeah. Any case, life, I think, for people with sensory processing disorder, one way or another, is a little bit harder because you have to get over that. What I learned though, when I learned about it, is that it's usually more commonly diagnosed in children, and as a co-diagnosis with autism. It's not
Hmm.
usually considered its own diagnosis.
And these are, again, immune dysregulations to a degree, right? Your nociceptors or your peripheral sensory nerves are kind of affected. And it makes me think, right? Like you said, we're always thinking in this field to try to help. You probably had some sort of predisposition as well. And then the insults came in 2020.
Right. And then it gets worse. Yes. And then adding to that, all of the symptoms of like muscle control loss, particularly like in my limbs, in my hands,
That you had initially.
not in, well, SPD has gone all my life, but during it was April, May 2024 is when I had to go to the ER. I could not lift up my head, right? I just had to lean back like this. The ptosis, the swallowing, really just, what is this part of the body called? I forget.
This is the thoracic and the head. Do you mean
Yeah. So just like muscle weakness, lack of muscle control. Oddly not
like in your proximal muscles, your core?
proximal. Thank you. Yeah. So that was adding insult to injury. I already feel bad, and I feel like I can't hold a pen. I couldn't type. I work in tech. It's a big deal. You do need to be able to type. You don't need to do much physically to work in tech, but that's kind of an important one. And then more recently, I've been more active, but have had issues. I get apparently with carpal tunnel, just such a boring thing to get diagnosed with, and some neck issues as well. So yeah, for the neurological stuff, it's basically muscle control and muscle weakness, I think, are the two big ones. And then the sort of ever persistent buzzing background noise of everything hurts a little, everything is a little too annoying, et cetera, et cetera. By the way, I should say I've not been diagnosed with autism. I have taken some tests just for fun to be like, I work in tech again. Like, odds are high. But no, it doesn't seem to be like a code diagnosis.
Okay. You're functional, you're attentive, you're productive. And that's what's nice now. And so a lot of these symptoms with the sensory issue, you're saying has gotten better, or is that kind of the baseline?
I would say that's the baseline. That's something, well, we haven't really discussed it that much, so it's something we could work on as well. That's I don't know. I hadn't read, most of what I've read online is, again, it's diagnosed in children and they grow out of it, right? I'd say mine's gotten worse over time. Like when I think back to being a kid, and it was like in college or after college, I realized I stopped enjoying going to live music just because it was so loud and people would constantly be hitting you. Stuff like that really bothers me. So
something is priming
yeah.
these things, and we often see it as, that's why we look at the whole person.
Yeah.
Could it be a hormonal issue because hormones are anti-inflammatory, toxin overload and burden?
And we did find out I am apparently chock-full with toxins. So either from growing up on a farm, or I try to eat well. Like,
Yeah, and these store in fat, muscle, and eventually in brain and other organs.
Yeah.
So that's the part we're kind of at right now, is the detoxification phase.
Yeah.
And while I'd like to do it earlier, in our system-based approach, we've gotten a lot of results by, introducing these therapies quickly to get you much better. And we're surprised and happy that it was a quick turnaround.
It was a quick turnaround.
Now, I think this is the part we hit harder. And we have different modalities of that, right? Plasmapheresis, EBO, which is the extracorporeal blood ozonation, and photobiomodulation and filtration to get out toxins, a little more invasive. We were talking about, there are different things, including liver detoxification aids.
Yeah.
And people need to understand that certain genetically prone, like yourself, people don't have good detoxification genes, and they need this enhancement.
Yeah, that was that was from the DNA.
Correct.
Yeah, that
Clinical genomics.
I had not done that before, and that was fascinating to read and learn about. So, yeah.
And we saw you're prone to certain neurological inflammation as well. So it kind of adds up.
Yeah, it does. Not a surprise, I suppose, in retrospect. But again, it's one of those things. Actually, even with the sensory processing disorder, I never thought to look into it or diagnose it. I just thought everyone felt that way and people were better at dealing with it than I was. It was actually my ex-husband who said he'd read an article about it in Science or something. And he was like, "That's you. I think that's you." Right. And that's really when I started getting into it. He gave me custom earplugs as a Christmas present, so I could start going to concerts again.
Nice.
Yeah, it was very sweet.
Well, yeah, that's a great goals to look forward to, and I love sharing this process so people can see that, wow, looking at the body in this way
Mhm.
and knowing there are advanced, treatments can help them.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Trying to think if there's anything else that really stuck out about the process that would be worth discussing now. Well, actually, let me throw one back at you again then. Was there like a moment, was there a turning point in your career where you realized the system wasn't working? Because we talked about that, but I don't know if I've ever asked you about your hero origin story.
I never really liked any fields
Okay.
at all, and
Fair enough.
everyone knew that around me, and they're like, "Go to this conference," and it was a longevity, conference,
Right.
medicine. It changed everything. Too bad I was already matched into neurology, out of all things.
That's not a bad place to start from, though.
Then you realize in your intern year, this all sucks. It's terrible. I'm not happy. I don't like the way that they treat you, the way that they're training you.
Mm,
It's like throughout a lot of things we learn in textbooks, and it's just work, work, work.
mhm.
And it's like, okay, this is a ton of outpatient. There's no, I'm sorry, inpatient in the hospital, no outpatient, no caring about where it's coming from. And it all made sense that I needed to reset where I was heading.
Just as a quick side note, I'm always amazed, like I was watching The Pit, of course, like everyone's watching The Pit, uh, at how much we know about things like how fatigue affects decision making and cognitive overload, etc. And yet we still insist doctors do these like full 24-hour shifts. Like,
Yeah.
come
It is
on.
kind of counterintuitive.
Yeah,
Like
like,
they have to be able to work at night and be able to meet the demands. So in that
yes,
regard, I'm happy,
sure.
but they shouldn't be scheduled that way. And at the same time, if you want the most productivity, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've asked other doctors, and there are very good sort of practical reasons for it. You want to see through, patient through the cycle and be on point, et cetera. But I'm wondering if and when that would ever change, given medicine seems like such a static field.
Yeah. What hasn't changed in the past 40 years is the textbooks for the most part.
Oh, really?
I mean,
Well,
clinical
that's scary.
genomics, understanding the harms behind certain medications, interest behind it, like we talked about. So, yeah, it's you're absolutely right. I think the stagnation is the problem, but the fellowship and the additional training after is always going to be there.
What do you see? What are you excited about changes for in the medical field over the next like 10, 15 years?
Precision medicine.
Okay, say more
Yeah,
about
so
that.
I'm helping a colleague and a bunch of people in high positions create this board of precision medicine where it's basically, take functional medicine but make it really tailored to each unique individual based on advanced biomarkers,
Gotcha.
like their microbiome,
Okay.
genetics, everything that we have today that's been useful
Mhm.
and systematically applying it. And we also call it the study or the N of one
Mhm.
medicine and showing how from the beginning to the end of treating that person, the results are what matter.
So that's interesting too, because presumably, and then you have all these like discrete protocols that you've got the data on, and then ideally you should be able to extract them out to people groups. I know that's a little
Generalized,
right,
yes,
right
because everything is gonna be tailored. Yeah.
to the
Well,
individual,
I think the process is gonna be that way, though.
right? But then you can see like, oh wow, for this cohort, we're seeing these significant results within like fairly similar protocols. Obviously, it's precise. That's the point. But that might be able to upend. I don't know, existing methods of treatment that produce less good results, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that I was doing research on knowledge sharing, and one thing that really struck me was how um, health data security actually messes with research because you have to opt in to sharing your health data. And people don't want to because, at least in America, there's such a fear that if my health data is public or shared, then my insurance will drop me, right? Or my insurance will go way up. It's very much tied to just cost again, right? And I realized that if all of this health data at least was anonymized and shared, we could have had significant pools of research for information or data sharing for like decades, right? Like it's. Do you see any changes there, or do you think, or have you seen any
In the system, I
improvements
have
in
very
this?
little faith, but
Okay,
yeah,
fair enough.
you know,
Well, on a
unfortunately.
grassroots level, maybe.
Yeah,
Okay.
for sure. With AI,
Mhm.
and anything is gonna be possible. That's the way I see it. You can't even perceive what's gonna be coming. So, and I think it's gonna be, look, there's so much geared toward this field, but there's so much financial corruption and backing behind conventional care. We're talking about managing chronic disease and prevention.
Mhm.
There shouldn't be chronic disease, but it's so
Precision
financial.
medicine should also be economically viable, right? I would think.
Yeah.
Just dealing with
I think they're
AIs
going to
and
just
medicine
really,
here.
I don't know what's going to happen, but it looks like it's going to fork completely. And either you're part of the cheap basic care
Mhm,
or you're not. And I think that they're going to control hospitals
mhm.
unless we change.
Yeah,
And then, you just want to be in and out of there.
right.
And then have your doctors on the outside doing the precision medicine, and they're the safety net.
Right, right. If all else fails, then you've always got
The
benefits
thing
on
is,
that.
with all the attacking on vaccines and medications and stuff, and we don't want to be on tons of meds and everything like that. So you're going to see that if this happens, people are not going to want these things. They're going to overload you in the system.
Right. Actually, let's talk a little bit about vaccines. When I got ill, I that was years after I'd gotten, for example, the COVID vaccine.
Mhm.
And I had not made a correlation between the two at all. But since then, I've been keeping a health journal. I'll go back and look at old photos, and see, like, oh my, I'm like smiling like this. Like clearly I was very weak in the time. And you had been talking earlier about the COVID vaccines when they came out. They obviously were rushed for very good reasons, right? People wanted to solve the problem as quickly as possible. But I have other friends now I've been sharing my health journey with similar symptoms that are being treated now for long COVID or other COVID-like symptoms. And it seems like something you've seen as well in your practice, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are you seeing any general themes with this, or what is it about?
I'm seeing a lot of neurological side effects. I
Right.
published on that a case series of neurological side effects that came into my practice within 8 weeks of mandates where people were forced to.
Mhm. But what is it about? I mean, the vaccine itself didn't seem to have anything to do with your nervous system. So what was going on there?
Spike protein is small and can, be pervasive
Okay.
anywhere.
So it's just invading or not connecting to the nervous system.
Yeah, it has neurological adverse events for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, it
Got it.
also has microvascular events. We know if you have an LPA or D dimer or any of
What's
these,
LPA?
sorry, these genetic or blood markers, as they translate to, elevated for clotting,
Okay.
you're going to have a higher tendency to clot. We've seen that correlate,
Interesting.
and that's in the literature. So people, after had blood clots, you've heard they, what was it? The J&J was pulled for this reason, and I think it was in those people who had.
That's what I had.
But same thing with mRNA. They can do these little microvascular changes, so you can have low blood flow to nerves. There's a lot of different. We don't know enough yet, but
Interesting.
it is pathologic, and you're taking a very infectious agent and replicating it. And we've talked about this too. If you put this in a random cohort of people, the mRNA is going to replicate based on our enzymes in our body if you have more of them or less. Some
Right.
people have no symptoms. They don't think that it reproduced a lot.
Right.
And their antibodies are low and others are high and keep staying high for a long time.
So it's kind of replicating whatever you had that was already an issue.
And if you have that predisposition, you can get into some trouble. So we had to see that. That's why it's personalized medicine, not one size fits all. But, that's okay. If it's over 60 high risk people, it's one thing, right?
Yep.
But for low risk people is another.
It's interesting because when I think about how I was raised to be very suspicious of medicine and, take as little as possible, go to the doctor as little as possible. It's true that a lot of medicine throughout history has been brute force. It solves one problem, causes another issue, but at least you go on to live another day,
Yeah.
and your brain.
Your longevity might be affected, but the acute staging.
Yeah, yeah. As long as you can survive enough to reproduce, right? That's really that's what all species are here for at the end of the day. But now we do have at least, some amount of data getting up on 100 years, which is not a very long time, by the way. Sounds like a lot, but
Well, with billions of people.
with billions of
that could be
people, that's right. Yeah. But also in a very different environment. I was just joking with a friend the other day about our little ice age here in Miami. And it made me, reminded me that humans were in the ice age for 15,000 years that we only recently got out of and might get back in again sooner than later. I mean, who knows with global warming, but we do live in a world that is physically significantly different than even, let's say, the 1920s.
Oh my
The
gosh.
rise of,
Even up to the 40s, right?
yeah,
I think
exactly.
World War II.
We got plastics now, we have metals, we have processed foods.
Fast transportation, computing.
Yeah, through the rise of the industrial age, all of a sudden now we have like particles in the air that we never had before that people are breathing in. So yeah, we've changed the physical world extraordinarily quickly over in terms of like geological epochs, right? So we have a bunch of data over the last 100 years, but in a wildly changing environment.
Yeah, that's true. So
Yeah.
that's another confounding variable. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I thank you so much for being here and
Of course.
sharing your story.
Yes,
And we'll
absolutely.
look forward to having you back on potentially again with more exciting news.
At 110%.
That's right. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.